What is the difference between a want and a need? And in case it sounds like I'm baiting you with that question, I will answer it first myself. Ice cream. A want or a need? Ice cream for me is a want. It pains me to say it, but it's true. And here's how I get there in my thinking. I ask myself things like, would I cease to exist if I didn't eat ice cream? No, of course I wouldn't. Would I be unable to care for my loved ones if I didn't have access to ice cream? No, of course not. Would my life still be enjoyable without ice cream? Maybe. I don't know the answer to that yet. What I do know is that I'm thinking about Haagen-Dazs right now, specifically their toasted coconut flavor. There's one that's walking distance from here, and I could go there right now. But I'll stay and do this. But for real, what is the difference between needs and wants? This is a big tension in human life, at least here in the United States. Because the tension becomes what I believe about my wants and needs ends up affecting nearly every area of my life. So naturally, when I begin to get some clarity about what my needs and wants really are, my life starts to take on more meaning. Now, just so you don't think I'm making this stuff up, let's look into the scriptures and see what they have to say about this. Our passage for today says this about wants and needs. The way of God is profitable when it is combined with being happy with what you already have. We didn't bring anything into the world and we can't take anything out of it. If we have food and clothing, that will be enough. But people who are trying to get rich become slaves to their desires. They are trapped by passions that plunge the world into ruin and destruction. Clearly, the Apostle Paul is using hyperbole here. Were he alive today, I'm sure that he would concede that there are more needs in human life than just food and clothing. But his point comes across. And I wonder how much more equal our world would be if we thought of our wants and needs like that. If we thought of other humans in that context. I was just thinking yesterday about Bethesda Cares, an organization that works out of the kitchen of our church downstairs. And one of the ways that we can be generous to them is to let them use our space. And they serve free meals to anyone who is in need 5 days a week. And they have been so busy lately. There has been a line, not just of a few people, but a line that wraps around the building. Now think about this for a second. The people in that line for food, would you say that it's fair to assume that they are there because something is wrong? Is that broad enough and fair enough? You see, there is a reason that each person in that line isn't at the grocery store buying food. Something went wrong for them, and Bethesda Cares is doing something to right that wrong. And it is beautiful to behold. But hypothetically speaking, if more people kept coming for food and we kept running out of food, do you think we could get people in Bethesda to donate more if we put up a sign right above the entrance to the food line that reads, "We're doing this because something in our world is wrong and no one else will do anything about it. Now accepting food donations." I mean, how's that for a marketing slogan, right? That would be awful. We would never do that. It's also incredibly arrogant. Why don't we do things like that? Well, because God's way never employs guilt. in order to evoke someone's generosity. That's just not how it's supposed to work. So how do we become generous people and invite others into being generous without laying guilt on them? Unfortunately, that is a question with a highly individualized answer. Just imagine the diversity in our world. Life, work, geography, economy, education, anything, you name it. A human life is infinitely complex. And if that is true, then it means that the only way toward collective progress is for each one of us to ask ourselves brutally honest, highly individualized questions about our needs and our wants. This is why you will never hear me teach on tithing. I am happy, even eager, to always teach on generosity, but tithing, never. And if you didn't grow up in the church and you don't know what that word means, tithe is just a word that means tenth that we get from the Old Testament. And it came to mean the practice of each member of a church donating 10% of their annual income. And you might be thinking, well, that's great, Ryan. Just make it a flat tax. Makes perfect sense. Sign me up. But herein lies the highly individualized problem. It's not a tax. A tax is compulsory. Generosity isn't. Number two, there are people in every community in the world who are able to be generous with far more than 10% of their income. And number three, there are people in every community in the world who, if they gave away 10% of their income, they would die, literally. And God's way of navigating this spider web of complex life experiences puts forth a system of generosity in which everyone can participate. That system looks like this. If you have less, be as generous as you are able. If you have more, be as generous as you are able. Generosity looks different for each of us, but generosity as a lifestyle is God's way. Pastors have the high privilege of caring for our churches, and our churches are able to do everything that they do because of people's generosity. For someone in my line of work, that can lead to scary seasons, sure, but it's also always mysterious and beautiful to see it play out. And as backwards as this might sound, over the past 25 years of pastoring, I can't believe it's been that long, I have discovered that much of what churches don't do isn't because they lack things like vision, love, goodness, or even talent. No, more often than not, it's due to a lack of financial means to do those things. I mentioned Bethesda Cares earlier and all that they do for people in need in our city. Did you know that our church does not profit from them being here? No, not at all. In fact, every day that they operate, guess what? We lose money. Do you have any idea what an industrial size oven and a room full of restaurant grade freezers and refrigerators do to a church's electric bill? Do you have any idea what an industrial kitchen does to a water bill? The heating bill, the plumbing, it would boggle your mind. Why do we do it then? What is the reason for this insanity? I'll tell you why. Because it's the right thing to do. because something is wrong in one of the mightiest, most prosperous nations on the planet. We have food lines made up of our own citizens. I mean, what? That ought not be so. And so we do as much as we are able to help right that wrong. And you share in that with your generosity. Did you know that? If you contribute financially to church in Bethesda, did you know that every weekday at 12:30 p.m., your generosity is feeding between 40 and 100 people? That is wonderful. Were you there? No. Did you lift a ladle? No. Were you in the kitchen scrubbing giant pots? No. All you did was give money. I mean, how unspiritual, right? On the contrary, it's more spiritual than you can ever imagine. Generosity, any kind of generosity, is God's way. And by using earthly things differently, we can give people glimpses into heaven. And so thank you. You have made us who we are today, this life-giving, generous, beautifully odd, progressive community. Now, do you want to do even more for people in need? I do too. In fact, I think it's one of the big reasons that we're here. I'm ready like yesterday. So how do we do more for more people? We do it by acknowledging that our impact is only a side effect of our generosity. Let me say that again. We do more for people by acknowledging that our impact is only a side effect of our generosity. Can you be more generous than you are? Great. Okay. Do it. Are you not being generous at all because you're new to this and you don't quite know where this bald man is steering you? I understand. Set up a time. We can talk on any Thursday. I'd love to get to know you better, and I'd love for you to know me better. And later, if and when you're ready to start giving, okay, do it. And finally today, I say this because this is something that I have also seen over the years as a pastor. For some reason, it is often those who have the least who give the most. I don't know why that is. I think it's that some people just have such good hearts. And if that is you, and you are being more generous than you are able, please don't. You cannot do this alone. None of us can do this alone. Just do what you can. That will be enough. Because for all of us, this is about the heart. This is about life, human life. This is about the condition of our souls. And people are worth it. Our world is worth it. You are worth it. All of the inner work is worth it because we learn in our generosity how to live life more fully and how to enable others to live their lives more fully. Thank you for your time today. I know that was a bit of a longer talk than you're accustomed to seeing here online. So thank you for the few extra minutes. As we go into a time of reflection now, I want to invite you to join me in finding a quiet place to get still, to think about what not just what was said today, but what was heard today, and how that might begin to shape your everyday life, the way you look out at and see the world. We also invite you at this time to receive the Eucharist or communion with us. If you don't happen to have unleavened bread and wine in your presence, whatever you have available is sufficient. But let's spend a few moments now reflecting on this important lesson for our lives. Amen.